Because the Ministry of Power says Ghana needs 4.5 billion cedis to buy fuel throughout the year to sustain optimal power generations. This follows the country's growing reliance on thermal sources for energy generation due to the decline in power generated from the hydro source like the Konsombo Dam.
According to the Load Management Committee, there has not been load shedding for close to a month because current power generation is more than peak demand. The Ghana Grid Company is projecting peak load demand for the year at 2,477 megawatts, with Ghana's reserve margin being 146 megawatts, that's 5% of generation. Meanwhile, Gridco's standard minimum reserve is supposed to be 18% of generation capacity, with power demand increasing between 10 to 12% annually.
We commissioned VRA to do some projections for us so that we can plan towards the future. And it may interest you to note that the VRA is indicated that we require about $98 million per month to procure fuel for the thermal plants. This translates into $1.18 billion per annum. And if you do the conversion in cedis, that takes you to about 4.5 billion Ghana cedis for this year alone. And so we have to work very hard and tirelessly towards raising revenue to the tune of about 4.5 billion cedis this year to procure fuel.
According to the Ghana Grid Company, any challenge with Ghana's various power plants, considering the current reserves, might lead to an impact on power supply to various residential and commercial users.
I'm glad to say that the medium-term outlook for the power sector is very bright. You may recall that when this crisis started, the Minister of Power had to come out with short-term measures, medium-term measures, and of course, long-term measures. We are about through with the short-term measures, and the medium-term measures include a 186 megawatt T4 project, which is being undertaken by VRA, a 110 megawatt TT1 PP Senate expansion to combined cycle.
The Ministry of Power says the shutdown of Ghana Gas will not lead to a reduction in power generation in the country and an ultimate impact on supply to users.
We are in the process of setting up a distribution revenue mobilization task force that will commence its work in the coming days. We want to do a full audit of our meters. We want the task force to go from area to area to ensure that those who are consuming power but are not paying for the power consumed, we are able to capture all of them, because we cannot continuously increase tariffs.
Now let's go on to the phone lines and speak to Kojo Poku, who is an energy expert, to give us a perspective on the press conference there. Kojo, thanks for joining us. But the government says we have 6% reserve margin. Should we throw our hands in the air and be celebrating already?
Oh, not really, but from where we have been, and we've come very far, and if we are being told that instead of us having to shed load, there's a 6% margin, then it means that the situation has really improved. So yes, we shouldn't throw our hands in the air and make merry yet, but at least it's some good news to industry and to some of us.
Now, some are a bit worried because the Power Minister says load shedding committee won't be disbanded, indicating we are not out of the woods yet.
Yes, we are not, because if you look at, we are running thermal, and the situation is that Akosombo will probably deplete a bit further because the Harmattan has been around for some time. It's going to take maybe up to July for the waters to start coming into from the basins of the river. What we look at, it means we are going to rely on all these thermals to make up most of the generations that we have. There might be scheduled maintenance. Some of them might have to be shut down for any reason of one or the other. So if you have to shut down maybe a 200 megawatts plant, that alone is about more than 10-15% of the generation that we have. So if you have 6, it tells you that you're still not within the margin that if you need to have a base load machine goes down and bring in a peaking plant. We haven't gotten there yet. When some of these plants, they talk of Pong and the Asogli Phase 2, when they come on, depending which one the government takes on as a base load and which one is a peaking plant, then when the base loads are supposed to be shut down for maintenance, the peaking plants can be brought on board.
Now, could you tell us, you have been speaking about this throughout the year, last year, how long will it take us to be energy sufficient as a country, looking at what has been going on in the country?
Can you repeat that question again?
How long will it take us as a country to be energy sufficient, looking at the pros and cons happening in the country?
Well, energy sufficient is really relative, because what you tend to find out is right now the statistics that we have is 2015 statistics. What we have for 2016 is projected. We assume that in 2016 we will have 10 to 15% increase in the demand of 2015. So that takes you to the number that they put out there is about 2,500 megawatts. But that is only a projected figure. Now, if all these industries crank up their machines, the mines go into full production, then you might realize that you do not meet the demand. So in terms of having energy efficiency, we should be basically gearing towards something like 5,000 megawatts. And that is not something we can achieve this year in 2015. I mean, they've enumerated quite a lot of machines that will come online. But you see, to me, whilst we are doing that, we should also be planning for the long-term solution, so that in the next 2-3 years, we know that we are trying to look at maybe the nuclear that the Ghana Atomic Energy is working towards. We can have something major like a 5,000 megawatt nuclear plant to take care of our long-term needs.
So, Kojo, obviously, you are very optimistic that something would be done at the end of the day. Thanks so much for speaking to us. Kojo Apoku is an energy expert, giving us perspective on the situation there.